Hello, everybody. My name is Brittany Joyner, and I'm here today to talk to you about Trello for project managers. If you're here watching this with the PM72 conference, you're probably a project manager and you're probably looking for things that are going to make your life easier and save you time and just in general help you to get more done and be more effective. And I'm here today to show you Trello and show you why I think that's a tool that can help you out and what it looks like, how it works, and how you can get started with it. So let's just start off. Let me introduce myself a little bit more. My name, like I said, is Brittany Joyner. I've been using Trello since 2011. I actually recently found out the very date that I first started it, and I think it's like September 9th or something. But I started using it because I was working in a marketing agency, and they used it to project manage tasks for all of the clients that were at our agency, and it was a good way to keep the whole team on board. Um, Ever since then, I've just been hooked. I started using it for my personal life and for all sorts of things to keep track of all of my side projects and things I've got going on. And I've also used it for various companies that I've worked at and helped other companies start using it as well. I've been voted #1 Trello fan and most likely to get a Trello tattoo. Talking about brand loyalty, I'm a really big fan. And you can see here, I'm also a full time software engineer. I work full time for a company called Elastic. And in my free time, I'm a Trello enthusiast. I love to talk about productivity and minimalism and just general sort of like habits that help you accomplish the things that matter. I you can follow me on Twitter if you want. I tweet pretty regularly about Twitter or about Twitter. I do tweet about Twitter. I tweet about Trello and productivity and just different things I come across online and my experiences with the world. But we're not here today to talk about me and my Twitter. We're here to talk about Trello. So let's get started talking about Trello, shall we? Um, First of all, let me explain what is Trello because you might be joining and thinking, okay, I've never, even heard of Trello. So tell me a little bit more. What is Trello? The way I like to describe it is it's basically a digital whiteboard with supercharged sticky notes. So the way it works is it's basically a project management tool, a way to organize tasks and keep everything in one place digitally. And you have the concept of boards. Lists and cards, which are the specific elements that you organize around inside of a board. Often each card represents a task or a contact or a specific item. And those are all categorized in lists, which are made up in your board. So I'm going to get into more of what this looks like and the semantics of all of that, as well as what all of that means in real life. But I just also want to point out that it's used by, I believe, 80% of Fortune 500 companies. Trello announced this recently, and I think that's just pretty astounding that so many people are using Trello and um, very proud of its value and seeing the worthwhileness of it from small teams to even large teams. I've primarily used Trello in a lot of smaller companies, but I've seen that these larger companies use it as well. And so it's a very versatile tool, which I'll get into in a few minutes, but just a lot of credibility out there behind it. So let me break down a little bit more of what I just said about what is Trello exactly. It's a digital whiteboard, which means that you can access it from anywhere. You can use it on your phone, on your iPad, your desktop. You can use it in any browser or its standalone desktop app. You can even use it offline. I've been known to use Trello from my phone or iPad while I'm in an airplane and jotting down notes, trying to get them out of my head and be able to follow up and take action on them later. Everything goes in Trello and it syncs online. You can access it across any of those places or any of those devices. You can also control access via your board. So, your board is your collection of cards and lists, and you can make sure who is seeing the content on there, whether it's just you or whether it's people you specifically invite, or you can open it up to anybody in your team, or you can even make it public where anybody on the web can see it. That is not an accidental thing you can do, by the way. There's 2 steps you have to go through to do that. So don't worry that if you create a board, like, oh no, like, is it automatically going to be public? Not automatically. By default, it's actually set to workplace space. So only you and people on your team can see that board unless you change it. But it's very easy to change, and I'll show you where all these settings are in the board when we go to our demo time here in a second. Another concept of boards that you want to know about is you use lists, which are the way you organize these sticky notes on your board. So think about these vertical lists that if you had an actual whiteboard, you might write down a section called to do, or another section called doing, another section called done, and then move your sticky notes in between those sections. And that's exactly what you're doing here with Trello, is you're using those lists to navigate those cards around. And it's really helpful because you can view all of these items on your board in different views, such as a calendar or a dashboard view. If you want to see like how many cards are in certain lists or have certain labels or are assigned to certain people, or you can view them in a timeline or calendar format, which is really helpful for planning for productions and launches and things like that, and making sure if there's any dependencies that they're planned for accordingly. And you can even view it in a map. If you want, if your cards have geodata, you can see what they look like in a map view. So that's where the board is really powerful, that it kind of takes all of the individual data that you have and lets you kind of zoom out and bring it into like what I like to call like a mile high view. That's where the board really shines. But where it's not just a mile high view, you can actually zoom in and get even more detail on everything you need by looking at these supercharged sticky notes, which are the elements that make up the board. So, for instance, what that looks like is some of the things you can do is add members. You can assign specific people to a card. You can add start dates and end dates. Due dates is actually what they're called, and you can kind of see how they fit in your calendar. You can add labels for categorizing cards, and those labels can be literally anything you want them to be. You can customize them and name them. You can attach files and images and whatever else you want. You can even attach other Trello cards to keep everything all in the same place. You can add locations, like I've mentioned, and then you can add custom fields for anything that you're like, I can't actually, I don't see a default option for adding this in. You can use custom fields, which is a great way to get started with that. You can add subtasks with checklists that let you break down an item into even further chunks if need be. So there's a lot of power packed in these tiny cards. So it's really great for, like I said, being able to zoom in and see everything you need about a specific item while being able to zoom out and see everything across the board and track really where a project is going, over a high level view down to like diving into the details within each card. So you might be wondering, all right, this is cool and interesting, but why should project managers specifically be using Trello? And I'm not here to tell you how to do your job or what the best tool you should use, but here are some reasons that I think it could be really useful to you. And if you agree with them, then I hope you'll stick along with me and let me show you a little bit more about Trello and why I love it so much, and why I think it can be a really helpful tool. First of all, it's got a free plan, so it's very easy to get started with. There's no steep learning curve. There's no like complicated software you have to learn. There's no really complicated concepts or, oh my gosh, how do I do that? This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what I'm doing here. How do I organize all of this? There's none of that to worry about. It's pretty simple. I'll show you in a second how it works, but you just literally can jump right in, create a board, create a list, add cards, drag them around. Simple as that. No further customization needed to get started. And a lot of what you can do with Trello, you can get by with on the free plan. If you're really interested in some of these dashboard views that I'm going to show you, then that's when you might want to step up to one of the paid plans. But I don't work for Atlassian, so I can say this. A lot of Trello's power is pretty strong in even its free plan, and many people can get by without needing to ever upgrade to another plan. That being said, there's definitely some powerful features in the paid plans that if you are planning to tightly integrate yourself in Trello, you're going to want to know about those and you're going to want to use them and get involved with them. But you definitely don't need to start out with that. It's a great way to sort of feel out the waters and ease yourself in. Trello is also a very versatile tool. It's customizable, so I like to describe it as Lego blocks. So you can do just about whatever you want with it. So it's very cool. You can build a Hogwarts castle or a Death Star. You can do whatever you want with it. Sometimes you just need a guide to kind of show you what that blueprint is and what that should look like. But there's no challenge with being able to customize and build what you want for it. And it's very easy to add automation. So if you have workflows that are working really well, being able to automate it is a cinch. It's very quick and easy to do with Trello's built-in automation tools, but it also integrates to Zapier. And speaking of integration, it integrates with a lot of other tools. So I'll show you the Power Up directory in a little bit, where you can see all of the different tools that it does integrate with, and see that it probably integrates with your current tech stack, and you can seamlessly sync data back and forth between those two tools, that perhaps you're already working in or other people on your team is working in. And then lastly, there's a really engaged community. So if you're ever stuck on something, you're like, like, how do I do this in Trello? Or I'm getting stuck on how to make this happen. The Atlassian community is very strong, and the forums, everybody is chiming in, answering questions, posting ideas, and helping folks out. And then there's also plenty of content online, from YouTube videos like ones that I make to, comments in Reddit with people sharing different things, and blog posts about people talking about ways they're using Trello. So there's plenty of information on there that can help you understand, okay, well, I've started using this tool. I'm stuck on this, or how do I take it to the next level? There's a never ending amount of content for that. So you'll never be bored. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and actually jump into the tool. Are we ready? Ready? Are we, everybody ready to jump into this tool here? Let's head over to a board here. Let me find the right place. I'm going to move my video right over here. So I went ahead and created this board, and just to kind of show you what that looks like to create a board. Once you log into Trello, all you do is hit this create button. Click create board. You'll name it whatever you want to call it. You assign it a workspace, which is basically Trello's version of Teams or groups. And if you're paying for Trello, then you'll pay by workspace. So the paying the payment the pricing plan works where you pay per user for the workspace. So let's say it's just me in this workspace, and it is, then I only pay for one user, myself, each month, and I get access to all of the paid features through that. If I create a board on another workspace, then it won't have access to those paid features. So that's just kind of how you can differentiate with that. But a good way to think of it is kind of like groups or teams. And then again, you set your visibility, which, as I mentioned, defaults to this workspace one, but you can change it to private, or you can change it to public. But you'll have to intentionally click public. You'll have to confirm that you understand it's public. So that's how that works. So, and then you go ahead and create board, or you could even start with a template. And what that lets you do is kind of look at any templates that you've created. It lets you look at other templates that other people have created, and you can even explore these other templates. I'm going to open this link in the new tab so you can see. You can explore these other templates across all of Trello. And so it's really exciting to kind of see. You can see there's even a whole section of project management templates. So this is where it's like really useful for project managers. It's probably one of the most common use cases is using Trello for project management. So you're in luck, because there's a ton of content written about it, a ton of templates, and lots of different ideas for how to use it. So we're going to go back to my board over here that I made, just to kind of help demo and show you sort of what it looks like. And one thing I just want to kind of show you off the board is off the board, no pun intended, is here's what it looks like out of the box. Here we've got this board. I've created these lists. Adding a list is as easy as typing a name in this section. If you don't like the placement of the list, you can easily drag it around. There's no issues or no problem with that. Adding a card is as simple as typing something here. So name my card, and adds a card in there. And from within a card, there's all sorts of things you can do, right? So this is your supercharged sticky note, so you can assign members to it. You'll be able to select from anybody on the board. You can add more people to your board, by the way. If you go up to this sort of area here where it says share, just click that, and you'll be able to create a special link that you can add other people to. You can type in email addresses or search for other people in the search bar to add them to your board. And then once they're on there, you can assign them as members. You can use labels. I've used labels for this board to categorize the status of a task from in progress to from not started to in progress to done. But you could just as easily do something different. For instance, you could kind of inverse what I've done here, and instead of using the list to be the different departments, you could make the list to actually be the status of not started, in progress, and done, and then use these labels to indicate what department it's with, or really anything else you want to do with it. It's completely up to you. There's this card description where you can add more details and say whatever you want. It is markdown friendly, so you can see how the formatting looks on that. Markdown. And you kind of see just how you can style that and make it look nicely. You can add comments on here to save them back and forth, and make sure interact with other colleagues on this card to communicate about project updates and view that thread of comments here. You can add a checklist with subtasks on here, so it could be, a good way to chunk down a task, or to just keep track of any additional items with it. And one of the things I really like about Trello is it shows you the progress you've made on the checklist. So as soon as you check something off, it automatically starts showing you what percentage is complete and how much more there is to go. So that's a really cool way to kind of keep track of everything going on in there. And you can even hide checked items so you only see what's remaining here and what's still to come. So that's pretty handy. These are the dates, which lets you kind of see something by its start and its due date. So this is a good way for, I'll show you views in a second where you can see the sort of timeline views. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So the reason you'd want to add dates is so that when you want to look at your board in a timeline view, you can see how these items overlap with each other. So I can see that, okay, this task overlaps with this one, or I can see these are all due and happening on this time. And the difference between timeline and calendar view is that with timeline, you can kind of view how they fall in between each of the lists. So however you've defined your lists, or whatever you want those to look like. So you can quickly see what that's like. And same with calendar. The only difference is you don't see it by list, but you can still see how everything falls in terms of start and due dates. So it's great to see. You can drag a card around to change the due date. So if you're like, oh, this actually isn't going to work here, we need to move that up a week ahead, you can just drag the card around and it will actually fix that. And you can shorten or lengthen it based on however you need to do, and it interacts with that as well. So that's just some of the cool stuff that you can do with cards. You can also add attachments, so you can add any links to files on your computer. You can add images. You can link to Google Drive, or storage services like Dropbox. You can also even link to other Trello pieces. So, for instance, if you want to link to another card or board, just going to grab this one as an example so you can see how it would look. It adds it as a little status right here, so you can quickly go to it as well. And if it's another card within it, let's say, for instance, this was dependent, creating to-dos for design. Let's say that was dependent on, maybe we want to be able to, maybe getting feedback. You can, all I did was command paste in there that link to the card. So now they're tied together, and you can see that it kind of gives you a little snippet of that card. So if there was like a due date or something on it, you'd be able to see it right here. You can see the board that it's on and the list that it's in, and any labels that are affiliated to it or any members. So it's a good way to, if cards need to be related, or like if there's dependent tasks, it's a good way to keep them in line together. And then lastly, if there's any other sort of pieces that you need on here, you can add custom fields to your card. And so the way those work is it's exactly what it sounds like. If you're not able to organize these, or you're like, man, it's great to have dates, but I wish I had like another date for when I need this approval by, instead of its actual due date, then all you need to do is click new field, and you can type the name of it, and you can select from a couple different field types. You can select from a checkbox, a date, drop down number, or a text field. So in this case, approval date, we want another date. You can decide if you want it to show on the front of the card or not, just like that. And that'll let you set it right there to be whatever you want. So you can see approval date, you now see that custom field there. So it's a really great way to be able to organize your cards and see everything that you need on there. I also mentioned location. So you can geotag sort of your cards. And so let's put in, let's see, Arc de Triomphe. Sure. And I don't think that's the arc we all think of, but we'll go with this location. And so what it does is it basically links the card to a specific location in Google Maps. And so then you can go over here to your map view and be able to zoom out and see where all of your cards are. So I've actually got another card in here that I have in Washington, D.C. And this one here, it shows you the name of the card and any details about it. But it's a nice way to sort of visualize your card if you have maybe a project where there's lots of different locations, or launches of different locations and moving parts there that you need to keep track of. So yeah, that's kind of the elements of a card. I've already kind of talked through this list structure of how I've got it organized by different department, but you can make it whatever you want. If you want to kind of style it a little bit, you can add these separators. Like I like to use this first list to kind of give any details about what's going on. So if you want to be able to separate by like, hey, here's key milestones and dates, all you need to do is add a card cover. And notice how it kind of looks when you change the different options. You could have it just be the color above it or the color itself, and that's a nice sort of way to style it. You can add these labels to cards, and the reasons you'd want to do that is to be able to filter your board. So this is actually pretty powerful because let's say there's several people working out of this board, or it's just you and it's Friday afternoon and you need to give an update on what's been accomplished this week. To get a quick snapshot of the important pieces, you can just use this filter and you can say, all right, show cards that are assigned to me or cards that are overdue, and you can quickly say, all right, here's what we're behind on. Or let's say, you want to see what tasks are still in progress by Brittany, like what's Brittany still working on. You can see, okay, well, this is what Brittany's actually interested and working on. So these filters are pretty powerful. You can search by specific keywords, or you can search by members, due dates, labels. Those are important for being able to filter cards the way that you want. Another way to sort of aggregate the data about this uh, aggregate all of the data that you're seeing here on this board within each of the cards is by going to this sort of dashboard view, and it gives you information about all of your cards and how they're working together, and lets you kind of have a bird's eye view. So for instance, if you want to see your cards per label, you can see how many are in not started versus in progress and done. And ideally, as you move through your project, this decreases and this increases. Ideally, that's how that's going to work. And you can see cards broken out per member to help you understand if there's, are we assigning too many cards to any one person, or is anything happening with that? And also seeing the due dates and visualizing your cards in that way, or however you organize your list. So you can also customize these if you want to make them look a little different, such as in a pie chart or a different style of chart. There's lots of different options for that. So that's pretty much how you'd move around. Other cool things you can do on your board, you can change your board background. So you can make it be some of these different images if you're interested. You can do kind of whatever you want with that. You can choose a color, you can choose a specific image here, you can upload a custom image like I have. You can do all those sort of things. And one other thing I want to mention while I'm here is power ups, which are the third party tools that integrate with Trello. And this is just, man, there's just so much you can do with power ups. So Trello is pretty powerful on its own, but when you integrate it with other tools and these other sort of extensions, it can really take it to a whole new next level. So, for instance, if you're using, let's say your team's using Jira or using GitHub, there are tools you can use to kind of sync that data back and forth and make it a little bit more seamless for work happening in there. And you might see cards like this, Unito. They have a lot of different power ups in here, but what they are is they're a tool that's specifically meant for syncing data between different tools. So let's say you use Trello, but this other team insists on using Monday. We'll forgive them. We'll forgive them this one time. But to make your life easier, if you do want to use Trello, you can use something like Unito to map out relationships between, okay, well, if this happens in Monday, I want this to update this card on my board in Trello. And so Unito is a really great power up for that. But there's tons of power ups in here. You can see if you're searching for any other tools you might use on your team, you can see that there's a plethora of these types of tools that integrate. Anything you don't see, you can probably integrate with automation tool called Zapier. If you haven't heard of it before, look it up. I could do a whole specific talk on that. But one other cool thing to notice is there's a whole section of IT and project management power ups. So these are ones that are likely to be more helpful for you and help you be able to get the data that you need from your boards and be able to create burn down charts or Gantt charts, or different sort of things that you're going to need to see from your boards. So super easy, great way to do that. And I'm about to wrap up, but one last thing I want to show you is, maybe you have a board for each project. So, but you're busy. You're probably running multiple projects at once. So there's a couple different ways if you want to be able to see all of that data rolled up. You could create your own sort of Trello board like I have here called All Projects, and you could just have lists for different categories of project and paste a card for each board, and it will look like this. So for instance, let me show you. Just copy the URL of a board, paste it in as the title, and it'll show up like this. And as soon as you click it, it will immediately take you to that board. So if you just really want one sort of like repo to show, here's all of the projects I'm working on and let me quickly access it, then that's one great way to go. It'll quickly take you to, you can see all the projects in flight. Maybe you have these lists by like what's actually happening, what's coming soon, or however you want to do that. Or this is where it kind of comes down to the Lego piece. You can style this board however you want and have maybe the different statuses of you want all of the tasks from all of these other boards to float into one main board and let you filter it however you want. That's where you can use Unito to do that. You can have boards syncing data from their individual cards, but also updating this main sort of board that has like all of the cards on it that you want. If that's what you're going for, though, what you might be more interested in is using something called Workspace Table. And what that does is it basically takes all of the boards that are in your workspace, or as many as you want, and lets you create a view that looks kind of like a spreadsheet, to see all of your cards and organize what they look like when they're due, and add those sort of filters on there. So playing around with what that looks like, for instance, click this filter, we can select a couple different boards. Maybe I'll select goals, that other board that we were just looking at, and this board here. So assuming I've got, these sort of four boards, well, I can add filters and look at, let's say it's the end of the week and, my boss wants to know, what are we behind on? Well, I can just check overdue and it will quickly show me all of the tasks from all of my boards that I've selected that are overdue. And I can tell what project they're related on because of this thumbnail image here that shows the board. I can see the specific pieces by the card name. I can see what list they're in, any labels affiliated with it, any members, and the due date that we're missing on here. But I could drill it down further if, let's say, I only want to see ones that have a certain label attached to them, or maybe I want to see ones by a certain person. I can add those labels onto it as well. Or maybe I want to know what I should be working on for this next week. I can say what's due in the next week and what is assigned to me, and boom, I've automatically got my to-do list of what I need to focus on for the week. And of course, clicking on that will take me directly to the card if I want to paste any or add in any sort of updates or anything in there. So yeah, this has been a lot. I hope you've appreciated it, and it's been helpful. If you still have some questions, please come see me in the after party. I'm super excited to be talking about Trello at any time, honestly. So you can reach out to me in any way that you'd like. In case you didn't catch my Twitter username before because you were like, she's not that cool, I'm never gonna want to tweet her, and now you're like, okay, now I've got a lot of questions for this girl. Feel free to come find me on Twitter too. My DMs are open, and I have links to all sorts of ways you can stay in touch with me and learn more about Trello, from my newsletter to my YouTube channel. And yeah, like I said, I'm generally pretty excited to talk about any sort of questions or anything you have. So if you're like, can you touch a little bit more on this? I would be happy to. And I may already have a video detailing it, or maybe I'll make another one. Who knows? So, but yeah, thank you for joining me through this. And I hope this was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you in the after party.